When J-10C's Thunderbolt 15E missiles tore through the clouds in the night sky of Kashmir, this air battle, which was officially denounced by Indian officials as false propaganda, is reshaping the underlying logic of modern warfare with the brutal technological generational difference. Maintains an effective detection distance of 170 kilometers in an environment of electromagnetic interference, and its original gaze frequency hopping scanning mode penetrates the Indian electronic warfare barrier. The directional energy pulse released by the KG-300G electronic warfare pod accurately burns down the Rafale radar transmitter, resulting in a fatal disconnection of up to 8 seconds. This happens to be the entire process of the Thunderbolt 15E from launching to hitting the target 100 kilometers away, which takes time to complete. That's exactly how long it took the Thunderbolt 15E to hit a target 100 kilometers away from its launch. Wreckage analysis reveals even more shocking details. 90% of Indian fighters were destroyed before coming within line of sight, and the continuous rod warheads left a spiderweb of cracks in the MiG-29's cockpit cover without detonating the onboard munitions, testifying to the extreme precision of damage control. The root of the Indian Air Force's defeat is deeply rooted in institutional corruption. Su-30MKI mounted Russian-made Ir-77 missiles due to the lack of upgraded software packages, self-locking launch procedures in a strong electromagnetic environment. Even more absurd is that a squadron of ground staff will be training ammunition mixed with live ammunition, resulting in 2 MiG-29 hanging blue painted trainer rounds lifted off to fight. This technical crushing in 20 days after the detonation of the great powers of the game of dominoes. May the 27th in Paris. The Ministry of Defense press conference, Colonel Werner with velvet gloves wrapped in steel fists, fog of war, to avoid confirmation of battle damage, but with the, if true will be a service record, the subtext of the incident, and more will be the responsibility for the precise transfer. The Indian side refused to open the data chain logs and flight records. Behind this diplomatic rhetoric is Dassault's €1.2 billion market value evaporation triggered by the tsunami of military trade. The UAE Ministry of Defense overnight freezing the second batch of 18 orders payment process. Qatar's Emira's private advisory group with the J-10C test flight data to visit Doha's royal family. Egyptian Air Force commander even in the Cairo Defense Forum to show the electromagnetic spectrum provided by the PA side. Questioning Dassault's representatives in the public spectre system. Why is the spectre system like a stone sinking in 8 seconds of suppression? In wonderful contrast was the Chinese Defense Ministry's May the 29th strategic determination. Spokesman Senior Colonel Wu Qian's response was textbook geopolitical art. He completely bypassed the concrete results of the war, using the metaphor of the neighbor that can't be moved to refer to the triangular relationship between China, India, and Pakistan, and using the phrase to avoid complication of the situation, to allude to the dangerous tendency of India's domestic nationalism to boil over. When the Associated Press reporter asked about the technical risks of unexploded PL-15E missiles, foreign trade exhibits are not the latest technology. Behind the 9-word truth is the PLA air and space combat system of absolute confidence. Parak-15E combat power 30% from the missile itself. 70% depends on the Air Marshal 500 microwave photon radar localization, Baidu 3mm level trajectory correction, and transport 8 EW electronic warfare aircraft of the full band suppression. This Trinity strike chain even if the reverse crack, but also like a blind man peeping into the starry sky. Pakistan on May the 28th dropped evidence nuclear bomb, completely destroyed India's information defense. The 87-page report on the air war is detailed with military-grade precision. The wreckage of a Rafale, number BS-001, scattered in Bathinda, Punjab, and the Dassault serial number on the drogue fragment, matches perfectly with the Pakistani radar track record. The M88 engine turbine blades found on the beach of the South River at Avantapura, whose fracture pattern matches the cutting characteristics of the Thunderbolt 15E's continuous rod combat element. The pilot's death files also reveal systemic tragedies. Squadron leader Rajesh Kumar's parachute bag failed its annual inspection after ejection. Major Vive Yadav reported to the tower 7 seconds before the crash that radar shows the target is 80 kilometers away, when the J-10C was actually only 32 kilometers away. The Spectre, the system's full band blockage, has turned it into an information island. The most subversive is the L-band electronic warfare map released by the Pakistani side. When the Indian pilots desperately tapped the black screen radar display, the KG-300G pods were carrying out spectrum asphyxiation at a density of 375,000 pulses per second. which is the first time that the saturation attack technology originating from anti-missile systems was applied to air warfare, turning the French electronic defenses into an expensive metal coffin. The fallout from the air war has created a global defense earthquake far beyond expectations. France, in order to retain market share to sacrifice political bundling of the kill. Indonesia signed on May 30th, 54 Rafale purchase agreement, in fact, forced to accept the Fish submarine, plus chasing the Wind frigate plus satellite leasing, of 38 billion euros of bundled programs. More ironic is the French side of the terms of delivery of paragraph 14, prohibited in the Natuna Islands deployment of the fighter, naked equipment into a colonial yoke. The countermeasures of the Persian Gulf countries are even more creative. Qatar transferred 14 Rafale arrivals to the tactical reserve, and instead used sovereign funds to inject money into AVIC to set up a regional maintenance center in Doha. The UAE demanded that Dassault open up the data link interface, forcing the integration of the Chinese-made CH-901 cruise missile system. This shuffle even hit the Russian-Indian military-industrial alliance. The Indian Navy found that the BrahMos missile strayed 15.7 kilometers away from the target ship during the test fire on May 9, and the investigation showed that the GLONASS anti-jamming module provided by the Russian side was actually a civilian-grade castrated product. The Russian-Indian jointly developed Smart Sky data chain was even exposed to backdoor loopholes. The Su-30MKI was not able to use it during the critical air battle in the Air Force. Third MK in the air battle at the critical moment to receive the radar silence command actually originated from the New Delhi suburbs of a hacker organization's penetration test. The paradigm revolution of modern air combat was finally certified in this battle. Parak-15E in the actual combat demonstrated the launch no matter, mid-range correction, end-range active search, Trinity attack mode, so that the efficiency of over-the-horizon hunting and killing increased to 7.3 times the traditional mode. But the real downside blow comes from the system integration. Pakistan's ZDK-03 early warning aircraft through the Sky Chain relay satellite directly connected to the J-10C fire control computer, building up from discovery to destruction in only 12 seconds OOD a cycle. While the Indian Army, due to the conflict between the Russian legal system, the early warning aircraft to the warplanes of the delay in the transmission of data, is as high as 47 seconds. When the Egyptian Air Force delegation stood in front of the pulsating production line of Chengdu 132 factory, what they saw was not only the fiber optic nerve bundles snaking under the skin of the fuselage, but also the battlefield panoramic screen on the command seat of the AWACS that integrates 36 channels of information sources, where every green trajectory line flashes, announcing the end of single-engine heroism. In the combat analysis room in New Delhi at the moment, technical officers are using tweezers to pick up the American-made OHP program chip from the Rafale's wreckage. The core component, made by Texas Instruments, had melted into silicon sludge and an electromagnetic pulse, but it had accidentally revealed a more dangerous truth. The laser code, made for Dassault Aviation by Lockheed Martin, was engraved on the bottom of the chip. While Indian diplomats were urgently meeting with the U.S. ambassador to question the breach of the technology embargo, the White House Chief of Staff was issuing a ban on the sale of F-35s to Egypt, which had purchased J-10Cs equipped with a quantum communication module that could break NATO's encrypted links. And on the other side of the world, at the site of the Zhuhai Air Show, a Saudi prince stroked the new Thunderbolt 170 missiles under the wings of a J-10D model, and whispered to his entourage as the wind blew away, "It's not weapons they're selling, it's tickets to future wars." The showdown, which began in the night skies of Kashmir, culminated in the century-long handover of military hegemony between the plunging curves of the Paris stock market, the inkblot of the White House's sanctions order, and the containers of warplanes on oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. While Dassault engineers repeatedly tested the new radome in a wind tunnel lab, a virtual Thunderbolt missile trajectory was penetrating the electronic star chain over the Atlantic Ocean on a holographic sand table of a sixth-generation aircraft at a research institute in southwestern China. Not just the code for a simulated attack, but the proclamation of the rules of the new world.